So actually, before we open up for questions, Dr. Cucuzzella is actually going to just touch on a topic that was brought up in the last Q&A, and we were kind of needed a doctor to speak into this. And he's like,
Yes.
I'm a doctor. I could speak into this.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I can speak. I mean, trust me, I'm a doctor, right? But again, there's things we know, there's things we think, and there's things we have no clue. So most of medicine now is things we think and things we have no clue. Very little like what we fully know. But the question came up about the FH and, what do we, what's the risk of that in heart disease? How can you assess that? And David Diamond's actually done some really good work on that. So the people who have FH, high LDL, who are uber well people, their risk of cardiovascular disease is amazingly low. Now, if you have FH, high LDL genetically, but you're unwell, meaning your arteries are not well, you've got metabolic syndrome, yes, you are at an escalated risk of cardiovascular disease because that's going to be kind of a little more kindling there for your cardiovascular disease. But if your arteries are like Teflon and good, you're good. So there's a couple ways you can assess that. For one is, are you well? Is your triglyceride under 80 and your HDL 100? And if your LDL is 400, likely, and you feel good and you have good energy and you can exercise to 13 metabolic equivalents, you're probably pretty well. And your risk of cardiovascular disease is baseline risk for anybody else. But, and Peter Attia says this, and it kind of makes sense, cholesterol is essential but not sufficient for cardiovascular disease. If you've got injury to your arteries, yes, and you've got these little BB LDLs, these small LDLs. So if you have FH, familial hyperlipidemia, and you have a triglyceride of 400 and an HDL of 20 and a belly out to here and an A1C of 10 and a fasting insulin of 50, I can guarantee you your arteries are not going to look good. Now, how do you answer that question? You can go spend $99 or you could go out there $100 and you can get either a coronary artery calcium score or a CIMT, which is carotid intimal medial thickening. Now, if you're 30, that is not as meaningful as if you're 55 to 60. But if you're like, 55 to 60 and you've had, been told your whole life you've got, this genetic thing which is going to give you a heart attack, and if you're 55 to 60 and your score is 0, meaning you have no plaque on your arteries, nothing, that's a good thing. Yeah, so you can safely say, look, shared decision making. My arteries look good, I'm well, I don't want to take the med. But if you're that person and your score on how many of y'all have had a calcium score? Yeah, so if your score is, if you're a 50-year-old and your score is 400, 500, I've got people 1,200, 2,000, 4,000. No kidding, they need hard lockdown on everything. Probably need high-intensity statin if they have a marker like LP(a), sometimes even a PSK9, because those people are, they're ripe. I mean, they have horrible cardiovascular disease. So just know who you are as an individual, and then you can have that shared decision-making based on your own physiology. But that just clarifies a little bit about that question about what does that FH mean. So my LDL is really high. It's like 200-ish, but my artery score is 0, so I'm cool. I don't want to take a statin. But if I had a bunch of plaque on my arteries, I probably would look at, I would probably take that medication. It can stabilize plaque, and I would get those numbers down to the ground. So get information for yourself.
Thank you very much. Okay, so before we do the question and answer, I think it would only be fair to introduce our friend Autumn.
Yes,
because
absolutely.
We're doing this opposite. She didn't get a chance to speak yet, but we want to do a Q&A. So this is our very good friend
Autumn Weathers.
Watch Autumn Keto.
Yes.
And can you tell us real quick about you, and then we'll have you talk later.
Did I not provide a bio?
I have
Yeah,
one
but we're
right
going to read
here,
the bio
Mr.
later.
Joe.
I'm going to toss the bio out because I got better things to say about it.
Oh, okay. Well, hey, that'll work. But hello, everyone. My name is Autumn. I, like Abby, am a regular person, right? So not an author, not a doctor, not an academic, right? I'm just a human that has stumbled upon this ketogenic lifestyle some over 5 years ago, and it has changed my life, as I'm sure it's changed the life of everyone here. And so I'm excited to talk to you today about getting back on track after weight gain, maybe something that we can all identify with, but I'm just happy to be here. I am from Louisville, Kentucky, so yeah, traveled quite a bit, but I am just excited to be here with you, and you'll hear more about me, hopefully all the great things Joe has to say.
Yes.
When he introduces me. So I'm glad to be here with you guys.
Okay, so
does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I don't have any questions over here, but do you have some questions lining up over there?
This question is for Mark. I know a few people personally at this point who are doing everything right. They're doing keto, have tried carnivore, all sorts across the spectrum, exercise, all that, and they're still struggling, having difficulty with weight loss, in some cases still diabetic even with that after multiple years. I'm just wondering if you have had any of those cases or have heard of them, and what you do, how you... These people are highly motivated and they're just, like, what do you say? How do we help those people as friends or doctors or whatever? It's tricky.
No, it's a great question. Not everyone immediately reverses their diabetes. Some of these people have 10 years of fatty liver disease preceding it. I've never met a single person who can't get healthier. So I think that's, and the fitness really, I think, is powerful, because getting people, they struggle with some of those metabolic markers, and they struggle with, food and binge eating and food addiction and behavior and control over the foods. They'll struggle, then they'll have 3 great weeks, and then they'll struggle. But if we can keep them on a good pattern of exercising, I think what Don, I take away stuff from these conferences, change their identity to a well person, even if the world is still viewing them as someone who's obese, diabetic, right? In medical clinic, we're not even people anymore. It's, Jim's a 52-year-old type 2 diabetic, hypertensive, cardiovascular patients. That's how the medical students present them. No, they're a human being, and just show them you care, and you're going to stay with them, because never give up, right? Because this is the rest of your life. And if you have one patient actually, he shared this with me, and I've heard it again and again. And he had lost about 150 pounds, and he started to regain, and he texted me, and we saw him like that day over lunchtime. He was in kind of a crisis, and he said he learned this lesson again and again. You can have a cheat meal, but you can't have a cheat day. And that threw him off the rails, because a lot of times they feel like they can't tell you the honest truth. And sometimes it's like, Eric's office, right? The confessor, right? It's cool. You can say anything. And usually there's sleep apnea, stress, going through a divorce, kid overdosed, right? West Virginia, Kentucky. Their grandparents raising children. There's every stress is in the house. Brian talked about that, but I think it's a great question. I don't have all the answers, but try to connect with them and show them that you're going to do everything you can to help. Do you guys have any other patients, thoughts on that, struggling?
Oh, here, Abby, I would just, you kind of mentioned it, the honesty factor. Well, yeah, but just the honesty factor. I've never seen someone fail at doing keto that was actually doing keto. And so we have to get honest. I don't know about you guys, but a food tracker has never kept me honest. Because I'm going to just put in 1 serving of cheese. I'm not going to put in the 10 servings that I had. Why would I? It's going to put me over. So I'm just going to backtrack. And that's the truth. So I have clients that will say, hey, Abby, I'm following this plan that you gave me, and it's just not working. And I'm like, okay, well, show me what you're eating. There's no pictures of what they're eating. Okay, how much are you eating? They have no idea how much they're eating. But you said cheese, so I grabbed cheese. I love cheese, so I'm doing 10 servings of cheese. A serving of cheese is 28 grams. It's like a sprinkle. It's like a wish. It's not enough, okay? Right. So it's like a wish for cheese. So it's not enough. So I usually find that there is a lack of honesty of just what they're actually doing. Because it's not possible to do all of these things to be getting it all right, and your body's just like, nope, screw science. I'm just going to not do what my body's supposed to do. And then obviously, like you mentioned, the compassion and the empathy, and understand there might be something else. It might not be the medical side. It might be the emotional side that's causing them to hold on and to retain things. So.
And I want to say one of the last things to think about is also just change what you measure. What does health look like or mean to you? Because all these things can be going right, but if you're just focused on the one number that's not moving in the way you think, then you think it's not mattering for anything, right? So for all you know, your A1C is going down, you're losing weight, your numbers are better, but you just focus on this one thing isn't going right, so it must not matter at all, right? So it's just a matter of emphasizing the things that are going right, and then also, just understanding what are you doing it for. If you're just doing it to see a number on the scale, we all know what we can do to see lower numbers on the scale, right? But if you're doing it for your health, then you just have to take the actions every day for that reason alone. If nothing else changes, Thank you. Then just take the actions every day because you want to do that for yourself and be healthy for health's sake, not necessarily to see certain things or to, look certain ways, but just to be that type of person. So that's what I would say as well. Embrace what they probably are already doing right. And that's one of the most frustrating things. What am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? Probably nothing, right? Probably, if you're really taking those actions. So focus on the things you're doing right, and then just keep going and try to be as consistent as possible. And that's what I would say.
Hello. I have two questions, but we have somebody else, so I'll just ask one, and then if there's time, I'll get to number two. It's actually more of a comment for Abby. I just wanted to say thank you for opening the conversation about food addiction and about binging and the shame and stigma that's associated with it, because so many of us, and yes, I say us, myself included, deal with those issues, and everybody thinks they're the only one. We all think we're alone because everybody's too ashamed to talk about it. And I think it's all, so many people make keto look easy. Oh, just follow this list. Just do this. Why can't you just ... Well, it's really easy for you. It's not that easy for everybody. And I just wish more people knew that if you are struggling, you are so not alone. So thank you for opening that conversation.
Okay, before we let Tanya ask her question, Rachel and we have another giveaway. And we were trying to figure out how do we give this away, and we decided the first layperson who is not a speaker that walks up and actually is bold enough to ask a question gets a $50 gift card from Amazon. So...
Go, girl.
So you never know how we actually have one more giveaway, but I have no idea how I'm going to give it away yet. So, okay, there you go.
Thank you. So I was going to say on behalf of the regular people, but, and you kind of alluded to this a little bit already just now, but there's people here who have started keto 6 weeks, I think we heard ago, and who've been on it for many years. And everybody's experiencing different things, such as the doctor or as you just said, Amy. And but how do you find the balance between the numbers, the scale, and trust in the process? What keys can you offer to these people who've been in keto now for different amounts of time, and who this is a process, right? It's a journey, it's a process. Because at different times you might go through the ups and downs of it. So what can you offer as far as balancing those two things, the scale and trusting the process?
So for me, I have not weighed myself in probably close to 8 months because I don't care anymore what the number says. I know that I feel great. I know that I'm healthy. I've had a CAC scan. My score is 0, all of that. I mentioned briefly about the breast disease that I battled with. I have my entire journey with that on my YouTube page if you want to go and learn about it. But prior to getting sick, I was really, really small. Like, my head was so big, I looked like a bobblehead. And I didn't really realize at that time how small I was because I had just been chucking away at keto. Like, it was just like, it was working. And then when I got sick, I'm in the hospital, and they had to have the head of breast cancer come down to the hospital and force me to take these steroids. I did not want to take them because I was terrified. I knew that I was going to gain weight. I don't care now all the evidence showed that they were not going to help with my disease, but it's how they treated them because they didn't know what else to do. It was the first time that I ever gained weight where it was not a situation where I was emotionally eating. I could have probably eaten one of my children because of how I felt on steroids. And I'm so grateful for that experience because I help so many clients that are dealing with that also. But I'm thankful because when I got down to really small, people would say to me all the time, don't lose your curves. Steroids gave me some things I'm thankful for. So I'm just like, you know what? It's not okay. It's not always all bad. I don't focus on that number. Certain body types are celebrated in certain cultures differently. And mine works for me in my culture. So I'm okay with that. But if the scale is going to be something that is going to make you beat yourself up, get rid of it. Honestly, get rid of it. And as silly as this might sound, I just talked about Jesus, and now I'm getting ready to talk about Beyonce. My mental health, the way that I spoke to myself, when I look back on it now, I'm so disgusted. I'm so disgusted because as a mother, if I heard someone talking to my daughter the way that I spoke to myself, it'd be on sight. Like, we're fighting. We're on site. And I had to teach myself, okay, I don't wake up thinking that I'm worth it or worthy, but Beyonce, like, she's killing it. So for probably 6 months, I woke up every single morning and told myself, I'm as bad as Beyonce. And if y'all don't know what bad means good when you say it like that, okay? So every single morning, and it didn't matter what I was going through. I was sick. I was in and out of the hospital. Bandages, health issues, but I woke up every single morning and I talked to myself like I was someone else, someone that I thought deserved to be celebrated until I could believe that I was. And I just had to have this talk with my 12-year-old daughter the other day as she looked in the mirror and she didn't like her eyebrows and she doesn't like her nose. God made us. He formed us in our mother's womb, and we are perfect just the way that we are. Now, that doesn't mean that we stay in the place that we are if we are not at our best, but it means that he loves us still, no matter what. And that positive self-talk, as corny and as silly as it might sound, that has been the number one thing that has helped me and that I've been able to teach other people to do. So if you can't believe it for yourself, find someone that you look up to. It might not be Beyonce. It might be Sandra Bullock. It might be a football player, whoever it might be. But wake up and tell yourself, you know what? They live an amazing life. They're doing this and they're doing that. So if you got to walk around feeling like that person until you can say, you know what? I'm just as bad as Beyonce. Like, you can take the day off, baby. I'm here today. And that's literally what I teach people how to do. When it's that mindset and when people feel that confidence coming from you, like, we've all seen a woman that most people would not say is society's standard of attractive or beautiful or sexy, but she has a confidence about her that is unshakable. And that's the point that I aspire to get to and that I try to help women get to that point. It doesn't matter what the number says on the scale or what your size says, because at a size 0 and 124 pounds, I hated myself. Absolutely hated myself just as much as I did at 260 pounds, size 20 and a 4X. So if you don't fix it up here and change that self-talk, the Bible says that we have to take our thoughts captive and make them obedient. If God doesn't say it about me, who am I to think it about myself?
I think we have time for one more question.
So we got one more question from Amy.
Dr. Mark, I talked to you a little bit earlier. I'm kind of curious. Verta Health basically is giving its services away to the University of West Virginia to be paid after the fact based on the success. Can you just say a little bit? I'm sure there are tons of CFOs of insurance companies and self-insured groups. What would be the process to bring that about, and why would that be valuable to those CFOs?
Yeah, I think you have to get the CFOs at the table with Steve Finney and Sami Inkinen, and the vertahealth.com/research has all the studies. So the VA hospitals are now working with Verta Health. So the data speaks for itself. Diabetes patients cost insurance companies $18,000 to $20,000 a year. So if you can reduce those costs, it's a win. And then the patients are more productive. They're not missing work. So they just shared the data. And there was a lot of skepticism as these negotiations were going on. So, yeah, so for an employee, they can get this service for free. And Verta Health will only be paid if they meet, it's about, I think it's a 1.0 A1C reduction, 5% of BMI, and 60% cost of medications. So those, they have to meet all three of those bars, which are pretty, they're not small bars to reach. And if 50% of the patients reach that goal, it's like 10,000 cost savings, per those patients. So the money that the university is paying Verta to have those healthcare savings costs is a win. So I think they just need to look at these numbers, but the numbers of diabetes are just off the rails. So if you're involved with any of your corporate finance and you look at the premiums and the healthcare costs of diabetes, and you look at the trajectory going up like a skateboard ramp, you have to think outside of the usual, well, let's just get more insurance and cover more meds. You have to think of it differently. But I would say, and you reach out to me and I can connect you. Just have that conversation, and they can present their data in a corporate kind of way to the corporate people. I'm just a doc. I just was part of the discussion, just sharing that it works, and that this is real. It's not magical thinking, because I was doing it without the health coaches, But if you have these daily health coaches, geez, you all know that you can do this without all that, but having that support is huge. Yeah, for that third in the middle that need the support, right? The third that just chuck the bread and they're good. They're like the ones who cold turkey cigarettes, right? Yeah, some do that, and they just never look back, day one, right? But, a lot of people need that support, and that's who it's going to help with. But invite the conversations. A lot of them don't even know that this option exists. They just think the costs are going to continue to go up, kind of like inflation.
Can we have a round of applause for our panel here today?